All right, well, the president is facing a whole lot of heat for cozying up, this time to the Philippines leader, Rodrigo Duterte. Many are arguing that his relationship with Russia and the fact that Vladimir Putin has been deemed to have interfered in our election, that he cozies up to all the wrong people, to Hudson Institute military fellow Rebeccah Heinrichs, former national security advisor to Vice President Cheney, John Hanna. Welcome to both of you. John, that criticism keeps coming up. It would make sense it would come up now in the president's Asian tour. And, of course, he's going to meet with the Philippines leader. What do you make of the fallout from this?
Listen, on the one hand, Neil, I mean, this is the essence of international diplomacy. It is trying to advance American interests, even when we've got to work with some of the most dangerous or detestable people on the planet. I think where the president maybe doesn't get the balance quite right in terms of honey and vinegar, in terms of being willing to sweet-talk these guys, but at the same time push back aggressively when they do undermine and attack American interests, is that you've got to be able to do both of those things at the same time, as our best presidents like Ronald Reagan did with the Soviet Union, for example.
Well, you know, Rebeccah, I'm thinking how he handled the Vladimir Putin meeting, that at first he said no evidence of any Russian interference, and then coming back to dial that back a little bit to say, well, Vladimir Putin firmly believes what he says, that he didn't do that and all, but it's couching it and sort of parsing it. And I'm always wondering what leaders like Putin then make of that, or do they make hay of that? What do you think?
Well, you know, what's important is that President Trump stay the course in continuing to pursue the interests as a matter of policy that are in American interests, especially when it comes to Russia. That means protecting the Baltic states, protecting Poland, opening up the energy markets in that region, you know, getting it right in Syria, pushing back on Iran, all of these things that the Russians won't like. So as long as President Trump continues to pursue the policy and doesn't capitulate to the Russians when they object to the U.S., you know, modernizing our nuclear force and expanding our military presence in Eastern Europe, you know, it doesn't bother me if he has a good personal rapport with Vladimir Putin, as long as he stays the course. Putin responds to American strength, and he exploits whenever the United States is indecisive and weak. So if President Trump can pull this off, I think it's going to be a good thing for the U.S. in general.
You know, John, the difference with the Filipino leader is that he's a pretty tough character. Now, of course, he likes to brag that you know, drug use and the number of drug problems have gone down markedly under his leadership, but that's because human rights critics say that he's killing them left and right. Now, that works both ways. Our president admires the approach he takes to that. What do you think?
Listen, I think it's never a good place to be when the President of the United States, who is, after all, still the leader of the free world, the last time I looked, looks like he's cozying up to people who are not only acting outside of judicial processes and denying people due process, but actually acting as judge, jury, and executioner for people all on his own. That's a bad place to be. At the same time, even with Duterte, South China Sea is a critical interest of the United States. The Philippines are a treaty partner that give us critical military access in that part of the world. We've got to be able, at the same time we're at least tough privately with them on questions of human rights, that we are keeping the Filipinos on side in this very serious competition we have with China, the world's new rising power and aspiring hegemon that we've got to be able to compete against.
Rebeccah, how do you think the president fared on this trip? He'll be back late tomorrow night, but how do you think it all went?
I think he did very well. I mean, President Trump tends to do well on the international scene on these trips. I do want to say something about the human rights piece, because this is defining of the Trump administration. It makes a lot of people in D.C. uncomfortable. But what he's trying to do is he believes that human rights in general for the world and human prosperity is best handled when the United States is strong and secure. So what he's trying to do is, rather than virtue signal or lecture these countries very publicly, he'd rather do it privately, and he'd rather focus on common interests that the United States is secure and stable. In the Philippines, for instance, in 2016, the Philippines increased trade with North Korea over 100%. After President Trump started really throwing the hammer down, we got those tough sanctions through the UN Security Council, and he said that he doesn't want these countries doing trade with North Korea anymore. The Philippines utterly cut off trade with North Korea. So President Trump is looking for commonality where the United States and allies can actually push for common goals. That's what's going to be good for peace and prosperity in the long run, and so that's what he's focused on.
Guys, I want to thank you both very, very much.